Hey guys, welcome back. Tisha here, back for our first review for season 3 of Big Love. Go ahead and do me a favor and hit the like button as we jump into this episode. I want to point out very quickly that Bill is already on my nerves. Especially, I gotta try not to laugh. With what happened with him and Anna, I feel like he is a hypocrite and he is a user. And I often do not think that he cares about anyone else but himself. But you all already know that, okay? I also feel like what this episode revealed or reminded me of is how often the women put their feelings aside because of their husbands, because of their priesthood holder. Look at what's going on with Barb. Barb didn't even want a fourth, and now here she is because of what may possibly be going on in her life, as well as her husband's desires to give him a fourth. You got Nikki, who is torn between staying out of things as well as being there for her father by helping to assist her mother, and then later falling on the sword for her entire family. You got Margene, who is in Dodo land and who is this naive girl who just does whatever it is that her husband seems to want. And it just further reminds me of what's going on. Oh, and how can we ever forget Adeline, who is putting herself out there in so many ways to protect her husband and the prophet. We begin the episode. It seems like we're at Barb's and Bill is playing with the newest addition to the family, a baby girl called Nil. I personally hate that we didn't get to see Margene's lead up to this, what it looked like with her being further along in pregnancy, what the whole birthing experience looked like. Like, they didn't give us all of that. Barb is telling Nikki how proud she is of her work, and we see Nikki in a dress and it's a little bit lower cut and she's wearing heels and she's talking about how they're pinching her feet, and we see, Barb say, wear these instead, because Nikki has gotten a job working at the county services building. She got it through, I guess, a temp agency. She's acting like, at least this is what she tells Barb, it's to pay off her debts, when really what we find out in the episode is that she got it to help her father. We'll get into it. So it has been 7 years since Barb had her hysterectomy due to cancer. She is clearly at this point concerned because it may be back. So we see her throughout the episode struggle with the fact that it may be back, struggle with the fact that if it comes back, she could lose her life, like all the things that I'm sure people who've been diagnosed have gone through, right? We see her get a call from the doctor. We see her go in to have her testing done. We then see her get another call saying that she's going to have a biopsy as she continuously listens to this message over again. We see her fear and we see her struggles and we see her pain and her worry and concern. We see her at one point sitting on the bed as she rocks herself and she's holding a pillow, talking about how she beat this 7 years ago and she refuses to let it win, and she's not giving, cancer sanctuary in her body, and she gives cancer no permission. And when she was talking, I feel myself doing it now, I got a little emotional because I never have had a diagnosis, but I know people who have, and I lost some really, really special people in my life from cancer. So seeing those emotions and seeing the things that she was saying and doing, it reminded me of that, because it very much so is this thing where you see a person fighting not just for themselves, but for their loved ones. And I feel like that's what we got a little bit of in the episode. And as she's doing it and as she's saying it, I can't help but realize that she has all these people around her, all these adults around her, and she's still doing it on her own, because she hasn't even made any of them aware of any of the findings at this stage in it. Not even her husband. No one knows. And I get that she's probably doing that out of concern. She doesn't want to worry anybody, but it also reminds me of how alone these women are, even though they're supposed to be sister wives. There's not a lot of sisterly interactions, in my opinion. So Bill, to me, is an even bigger hypocrite than before. Despite his wife saying that she did not want a fourth, despite her adamantly saying it in the last episode of season 2, here he is dating Anna again in secret. He's at her house fixing the sink, stopping a leak, when we previously saw when his garbage disposal was messed up, he couldn't take time to do that. He told his son to look at it, and when his son couldn't figure it out, he solicited Nikki's help. So you can't do things at your own home, but you can do things at other people's home. Okay, hello, bald eagle. It's just Bill constantly reminds me of what's the person's name? Of Cody. Constantly. Like, there's this constant thing where I see little selfish ways and little things that remind me of that. But I feel like with a lot of these men, they're selfish. So as they're doing this, she has on heels, right? And she has on a short dress, and he's underneath the sink. Now, you know, if you're under the sink, you're laying back. She's standing over top of him like this with her heels and her little short skirt on, and he's underneath her. That alone to me is inappropriate. Like, there was no point in that. Wear some pants, girl. It's that play on things, how they seem to be so judgmental about certain things, yet he puts himself in situations where, looking on the outside, this is inappropriate, right? So the next thing you know, he's telling her he has to go. She's kissing him. She's saying that she wants to make love while he's saying that he has to marry her first. She's so eager to have relations. Then she then says it like, let's just have sex. Anna doesn't love him, and he doesn't love her. In my opinion, and you all tell me yours, this whole situation is based strictly off the fact that these are two people who are very much so sexually attracted to one another. I do feel like you should be attracted to your person, but you should have way more in common than the fact that you both find each other to be appealing on the eyes. I feel like that they lack the depth. Right? Because there's certain conversations that they should have already had that they haven't. We'll get to it. Which further makes me feel like Bill isn't doing this for the spiritual nature of it. I think he's doing some of these things for his enjoyment. Okay. So for the first time ever, Bill is in the red. His business has spent this quarter in the red, which means, to those of you who are not familiar, which I think everybody is, but just in case, that means that your business for this quarter did not have profit. It was negative, that you were losing money during this time frame, whatever their time frame is, might be 4 months. Either way, you lost money during these 4 months. So he's trying to figure out what needs to be done to fix that situation. Donna's like, it's happening everywhere. We see him meet with a representative of an indigenous tribe, Jerry. What's happening is he wants to partner with their tribe to build a casino in Idaho that would be pitched basically on what he's saying to Mormons. You guys tell me what you think, but that's what I'm gathering, because the way he's explaining it is like he wants it to be for a faith-based community. He says his idea is clean, kid-friendly, no smoking or drinking. He feels like with this type of casino, that they can have a monopoly for a community that no one else is serving. I think that he's trying to talk about Mormons. And I'm wondering if I'm silly here, because it doesn't make any sense to me. There's a lot that I do not know about Mormons, but I think that one of the things that they're supposed to stand for is no immoral acts. Nothing that is deemed as addicting. And isn't gambling seen as something that's addicting? Isn't that seen as something that's not clean? With that being said, would gambling be a good idea for that community? I don't think it would. We already know that he doesn't even really want to disclose it to too many people. So how do you think that it would be good if the Mormon bartenders that you met, you had a problem like kind of opening up to them about it? Why would you think that all Mormon people are going to want this? It just doesn't make sense. I feel like when it comes to Bill, that his beliefs get tossed out of the window when it comes to money. Which brings me to my favorite part of the episode, which was when he met Jerry's wife when they had a lunch meeting, right? Because she's asking all types of questions during that meeting, like, how does this polygamous thing work? And if, they believe in a supreme prophet, if they believe in somebody who's in the news now, like somebody like that vile man, Roman. There, of course, in this interaction on Bill's side is a lot of deflection and downplay, because if we're really honest, since the episode has begun, he hasn't really given us much on what his belief is, except to have a large family and to have multiple wives and to make it to the kingdom. That's about it. We don't really know the rest of his beliefs. Oh, and that having sex without being married is wrong. Because remember how hard he was coming down on Ben for the stuff that he was doing and how he went off and he got mad. Yet he does what he does later on. So Margie's like, we rotate wives, we're normal and we're boring. We take the trash out and do things like that. She's downplaying it. But if you think about it, there's a lot that Margene herself doesn't know, because she got married before fully knowing about this situation. She started dating Bill before fully knowing about the situation and having read the Book of Mormon. So Bill brings up the idea of the casino. And Jerry's wife, in a very nice, nasty way, I do this sometimes at work. When you know something, but you like, and you're talking and you make sure that you're watching your tone, because I get, overly excited anyway, naturally with my voice. So you're watching your tone and you're watching how you say certain things and you're being very aware and you're making sure that you're smiling as you're saying it. That is what she was doing in this situation, because she expresses confusion on why they would want to do business with them based on their beliefs. And she brings up the Book of Mormon. And I put good point, because the Book of Mormon, there are multiple passages that speak of darker complected skin like what you see currently on this screen, skin like mine, as a curse. A curse for the sins that I guess my parents and myself, I don't know how deep it goes, that have been committed. As opposed to the white and delightsome, I'm quoting this, white and delightsome appearance of the righteous. Meaning, people with brown skin are cursed. Indians are seen as people with brown skin. So she says, why would you want to be involved with these type of people? She says, you Mormons have pretty odd views. And she's smiling as she says it. You have pretty odd views on Indians, that they're dark skinned and cursed. So why you want to be in business with us, huh? Margie's like, we're not really Mormons. And I'm not sure that's part of the deal anymore. Of course, Bill agrees to this, that it's not a part of the deal anymore. And they're not Mormons, because there's a lot of tenets of their faith that it doesn't seem like Bill practices. She says, but you believe in the Book of Mormon? It says that Indians are loathsome, dark-skinned Lamanites. And just in case you didn't notice, Jerry is Indian. So are you going to have to, have me be turned white to be a delight? And I said, oh, once again, saying it being nice, but having that little, nasty side to it. You know what? I'm not even going to call it nice, nasty. I'm going to just say that she was being real matter of fact with it. Because she could have very easily done what Bill them do, which is skirt around it. But she didn't. She jumped right in and she said what the issue was. And she said it in a way that they wouldn't feel like they were being attacked, but by still allowing her point to get across. So we're going to say that. That's what it is. It's not being nice, nasty. Because it wasn't nasty. It was trying to get clarification. So yeah, blooper, edit. That's my edit. Margie saves the whole entire conversation because she says something in their native language, which means that they're basically peaceful people. I'm assuming because she says, yes, we are peaceful people. And she looks at Margie and she says, Margine, I liked you from the start. She then looks at her husband and nods, right? Understand that unlike what Bill does, Jerry's thought on this matter very much so is contingent upon what the wife has to say. He takes value in what she has to say because he's looking to her to know, honey, what is it that you're thinking of this? What is your stance? And when she gives him the nod, that is when he says, okay, Bill, tell me what it is that you see, right? And they continue with the rest of the lunch. Their money is what he wants. I do not feel like Bill is a racist, but it goes to show you why there's often confusion when it comes to exactly what Mormons believe. Because when you have doctrine that says something like that, it causes concern. Now, it may be like, how the Bible is with the New versus the Old Testament, and how once, Christ gave his life, that a lot of the traditions and the rituals that once had to be done no longer existed. But I don't know that to be the case with the Book of Mormon. So because that was once a thing, I myself have had trouble in understanding certain aspects of that faith base, right? Which is fair. It's fair to not understand. I'm admitting that I don't understand it, but I like that she called a thing a thing. So on to Roman. Roman is in trouble. He is on the phone, talking to his lawyers, because it's two lawyers and his wife, and they got the glass panel, whatever. So he's in prison, in jail, talking on the phone. He doesn't want to plead guilty to anything, so he's going to be heading to trial. Apparently, they have 4 counts against him because there are 4 Jane Does that have come forward. And he's trying to figure out what's what and who's who. And clearly, before it was even said, I knew that it had to be true because he's not saying it's not true. Who could these people be? Whatever. Instead, he's asking one of the attorneys if they're sisters. How would you know to say, are they sisters, if there's no truth to it? So the attorney is like, the other one gets on the phone and he says, the prosecution is willing to allow you to take a plea, for something with a shorter amount of time, something along the lines of time served for grape. Take the G off. Roman is appalled. Don't you ever use that word in my presence. He banged the mess out the table. His attorney is like, look, you got to get used to hearing that word because that's the type of word that the prosecution is going to use. That's the type of word that's going to be in the papers. That's what's going to be in the news. That is what the people are going to hear. So we're going to have to work on building a defense against it. Roman feels like everyone is forsaking him. So he wants them to go away and he wants to just talk to his wife. So as he's on the phone with her, she lets him know, that Albie has moved into the big house and he's cleaned out the office. And you can see that there's a slight concern on Roman's face because Roman is realizing just how quickly his son is taking over and how deeply this all goes. So he says, Heavenly Father will crush that bastard. Will crush that bastard of a son. And she goes, Amen. I said, what? You're calling him a bastard. He's your child, but okay. All right, I guess he's fatherless now. So we later see, well, technically they aren't legally married, so I guess, oh, okay, let me not go there. Because if you were to call my child a bastard, I want to fight you. We later see Nikki watching the news as it talks about how another man, the other guy that we heard of previously, who was also a polygamous leader, just got the same charges as Roman, and he got life for it. So Nikki wants to know, like, have you spoken to my dad? And he's like, no. And I don't plan on speaking to him. And you shouldn't speak to him either. Promise me that you're going to stay out of it. So she promises, but she doesn't mean it. Because Nikki got the job to help her mother. We later see her at work talking to another plant from the grants that is in there, and she's asking, you know, where are the keys to the file cabinet? And she takes the files later and does what she needs to do. So the lady's like, I'm not gonna be here anymore. I really, really like this place, but I have to go somewhere else because, you know, Adeline wants me to be in this area instead. So she has put women into position to get information for what's going on to help her husband's case. She's doing work that the attorneys aren't even doing, which you technically shouldn't do. But it just goes to show you once again how often the women are the ones who handle the business and get things done while the men get to take credit for it. So Albie is now at the UEB offices, and he's putting everyone to work. He has men moving stuff around and wives moving things in. And as the wives are helping him settle, you got Laura, the one who tried to help kill the dad, bossing other wives around, saying things to the wife by the name of Glory, like, you get your children because they're upsetting father. She's looking all confused. She's looking all flustered. She's looking like, unlike Laura, that she is very much so shy and not as aggressive and not as demanding. And she's like, you know, in a calm way, she goes, I can't carry the boxes and see to the children at the same time. And you got Laura with nothing in her hands telling her, yes, you can do both. And then she goes over to Albie and is like, do you hear how she disrespects me? She's sassy, father. Tell her how sassy she is. I said, oh, so we're calling him father now because what, he's supposed to be the prophet, so he's going to be father? Oh, okay. This is what we're doing? Interesting. So even though he heard the whole exchange, he agrees with the new wife and tells Glory, do what Laura says so you'll be in harmony with me. When I heard him say that, I was like, okay. I would be kicked out of the family because there is no way that I can live in circumstances where anybody bosses me around, let alone another woman who came in the family after me. Me and Laura would be, we'd be duking it out. I would have tripped Laura. Laura would have got knocked over on accident with a box. Like, it wouldn't it wouldn't have looked intentional, but something would have happened for Laura to know, don't mess with me. So Pam and Carl come over to Barb's to find out things on behalf of the neighborhoods. The neighbors want to know if the Henriksons are planning on coming to the block party. Barb and Bill have an attitude with Pam because they feel like she's told everybody what she now knows, which is that they're polygamous because of the way that she's come over and asked this question. And this is when I have yet another problem with Bill and Barb. You can't go walking around sharing the type of information that was dropped on Pam, saying that you're polygamous the way that Barb did it, where she, in essence, pulled the rug from under Pam because Pam is thinking that she's going to get a baby through Margene, and you come over and you pull the rug from under her and let her know not only are you not getting a baby, but it will never be with Margene because Margene is Bill's. And then you want to get upset because Pam may have said something to the neighbors. You want to open up your mouth and do those things, then you got to get ready to deal with the aftermath. If you don't want to deal with it, then you don't tell people. Pam says, I didn't say anything. The neighborhood map is out, and based on the map being out, they've come to some conclusions. Apparently, their ward issues out a map to let people know in the neighborhood who lives in the community and where their standing is. So you have active and inactive. I personally would feel like that's against the law. It's none of your business to know what my standing is with this organization, but apparently this is something that in their ward they do. So it shows that that Nikki is shadowed out, like they want to act like she doesn't even exist. And it shows that Barb and them are inactive. So they want to replace Bill as the hot dog man with another neighbor. Now, I was going to go on a thing about, oh, interesting how he was the hot dog man, but I was like, no, I'm not going to go there. I don't think they did that on purpose. So Pam says, despite what they think, she didn't tell anyone because of the kids. She doesn't want things to go wrong for the kids. And I think that Pam is telling the truth. And I feel like, I don't know, the Henriksons really got a lot of nerve when it comes to a lot of stuff. Because they came over to your house and they were nice about it. And they're still being nice to you considering what they know now. They're not being nasty to you. Because they didn't have to tell you any of that. They informed Nikki, who is upset because Nikki feels like they're under attack. She doesn't like that Barb told Pam. She feels like even though originally she thought it was a good idea, that it was done for the wrong reasons and that it was selfish and that it brought more attention on her when she's already going through a lot because of her father's situation. Barb tells Nikki, like, look, the way you dress doesn't help the situation. And Nikki's like, I'm conforming. Do you not see me conforming for the sake of my new job? Do you not see me dressing that way immodestly, even though I don't want to dress like Margene? I said, Nikki is really going to put her little dig here and there when it comes to the way that Margie dresses. So they go back and forth on whether or not they should be attending the barbecue. Margie continues, in my opinion, to be naive and not see what could come of this, whereas Nikki is afraid of if they find out what it can mean as far as the family and the kids and all those things. It very much so reminds me of how much Nikki believes in this and is in fear, because for most of her life, unlike the other two, this is what she was taught. Nikki tells Bill if they can go, they can go. She doesn't have a problem. She'll stay home and she'll just, work on her roof. A roof that was supposed to be worked on by some roofers, but they postponed it for now. So Barb shows up at Anna's house because Barb knows what she's currently battling, and there's a possibility that she might have cancer. And she shows up to talk to her about her and Bill seeing each other, telling her that she knows her husband enough to know that he has been seeing her, but he hasn't slept with her, which makes me wonder, do you realize that he slept with her later on in the episode? She wants to know more, if she knows about the religion. And Anna's like, no, we haven't really talked about it. And she's like, well, I want you to know more about how, our eternity matters to us more than this life. And that, the larger our family is, then the better we are in eternity to serve God. She tells Anna, we want to date you as a family. We want you to be our potential fourth wife. And Anna doesn't want to date the rest of them because she doesn't even want to get married. And she says Bill knows this, which pisses Barb off, because if you know that this lady doesn't want to get married, why are you trying to do what you always do, which is be manipulative and get what it is that you want, rather than take that lady saying that she don't want to date all of you all? Because that lets you know the truth of the situation. So she calls Bill, Barb does, to talk to him about it. And she's mad and she's upset that he's doing this knowing that she doesn't want to be a wife. And he tells Barb that he didn't want her to say anything. And why did you go approaching? It's not your, it is her business. And he's like, I'm not dating her. I'm just trying to figure out, if she's receptive to our beliefs and this journey. But in order for you to do that, you would have to tell her about your beliefs. You would actually have to talk about that. When all y'all seem to do is make out and talk about surface level things, because this is the most that she's heard about it in this hallway for these 5 minutes talking to Barb. So she tells Bill that this time around, Barb does, it's not going to be like how it was the others. First time she heard about the first wife, she was on her deathbed. Then the second time was when the babysitter bit her. I don't know how that goes. I don't understand what that situation was. And this time she wants to say, she says, you got 3 days to either figure it out or let her go, because it's either going to be holy or it's going to be illicit. Nothing about the situation is holy, though, in my opinion, based on what they say. Anna then calls Marjorie to tell her about Barb coming over and talking to her. And Margene is so excited because she's feeling like, oh, if Barb said all that, then that means she's receptive to it and we don't have to hide it. And I don't have to hide the fact that I know. And that means talk and all these other things. And I said, once again, she's naive. Barb later presents the idea of creating date nights to the ladies. And Nikki's like, we don't need no date nights. He's not pursuing things with Anna. And she's like, yeah, we probably are going to have a fourth and it's probably going to be Anna. Margene's like, well, I think she needs more than 3 days. Like, maybe she needs like 7 weeks. I know I needed more time. Barb wants time to adjust because she doesn't want things to be sprung on her. So she wants it to go ahead. And Sarah's overhearing this and she's like, Mom, what in the world are you thinking? I don't want you to do this. You don't want to do this. And her mom's like, I do. But does she really? Is she only wanting to do it because she thinks that she has cancer? So Sarah's like, great. Why not 5 or 6 or 7? Proving once again that they continue to miss the bigger picture, which is their children. I'm not saying that every time you decide that you want to add on to your family, like if parents decide that they want to have another baby, that they need to talk to their kids about it. But I do feel like in a healthy dynamic, at some point you should consider your kids and how your children will respond to the situation, especially if you're planning it. You're not talking to your kids about this. You're just throwing it on them like, oh, you already struggle with me having 3. Guess what? There's going to probably be a 4th. Figure out how they feel about it before you throw it on them. So, Teenie. Ben and Teenie approach the parents to let them know that Teenie is no longer allowed to play with some of the kids from the neighborhood. She's been called a bad influence. They think it's because of polygamy, but we find out at the end of the episode that it has nothing to do with polygamy. We'll get to it. So there's a scene with Lois and Rhonda talking about how much this bird is worth. I'm wondering if it's because Lois is going to try to sell the bird or whatever. But Lois is upset still about Bill not taking over the UEB and Frank marrying Kathy's sister, and nobody wants it to be brought up, right? We meet Bill's brother, Frankie, from one of Frank's wives. I think her name is Netta. Can't remember her name, but I know it's one that we've already seen. He's not sure as he shows up in Bill's car at his job if Bill knows who he is, which goes back to the fact that these people have separate families that don't even interact with one another, although they stay on the same compound, number one. Number two, that Bill probably got kicked out before he even came or when he was young, so he may not have remembered him or know what he looked like. So he shows up at Home Plus because he's been out of the house now for 3 weeks and he wants Bill to convince their father to take him back. He got kicked out, he says, for talking to a girl that's promised to some older man. They'll take him to Juniper Creek, but the exchange doesn't go well. Before he even gets to the house, Lois tells him that guys getting kicked out are harder on the moms than the sons. I don't know if I believe that. You guys tell me what you think, because I think as a child, I never got kicked out. But I remember how it felt when my mother picked her husband over me, not my father, but her husband over me. And I remember how that felt. So I can't imagine, being actually kicked out of the house. I would think that hurt a lot. So we see Frankie as they appear at the house, embracing his mom, and she's excited to see him, but at the same point, she's crying and saying, I miss you, but you can't be here. And he just, wants to be with his siblings and his mom. So his dad, Frank, walks up, and he's not even paying attention to the son. He's like wanting to brag about his new wife. So he's like, you see my new wife? You see my new wife, Jordan, I think her name is. You see her? She sits and fetches and she rolls over. He just talked about that lady like she's a dog. And I didn't like it. He's a pig. Frank is disgusting. And Rhonda, I'm sorry you didn't succeed in your attempt to get rid of that man. Messed up of me. I wouldn't say that in real life. But he shouldn't. I don't think anybody should be with Frank. Frank looks and says, I'm not taking him back. He was kissing a girl that was supposed to be for the bishop in a respected community. The bishop is probably old because he's being called a bishop. And she looks very young. You got Frankie begging to be able to be home. And you got Frank saying that he's basically insecure because he didn't like the way that Frankie was hanging around his new wife either. It just has signs for potential discord and saying things like he's oversexed. And Bill says, if you don't take him back, I'll make sure that you pay child support. He's like, no, I won't. He says, I know how this works. A dried up old man takes a young wife and then feels threatened. And that's exactly how this thing seems to work in a lot of cases. At some point, while they're driving and Bill's trying to prepare Frankie for what's next, he tells him, I'll be here for you and I'll help you. And he ends up running out the car just to later show up at Bill's house all beaten up. I guess the compound people are always going to find Bill because that's just what seems to happen. Nikki is in her home, minding her own business when she hears a thud. Her house has been TP'd by the neighbor's kids, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but between the music and the reaction of Nikki and the hurt in her eyes, you can tell that she's scared. She thinks that she's going to have to go away because she's a risk to the family. It just reiterates what she's been taught. She tells Bill, don't worry about helping her because people are watching, but he does surprisingly help her get rid of the toilet paper. We see Albie get set up at a rest stop. Y'all, this thing. He and another man, apparently, I don't know how they saw each other, but the both of them in their cars, flashing lights, like they're looking in each other's rearview mirrors as they double blink to each other and all that other stuff, giving each other a single. So Albie's in the bathroom and he's, washing his hands or whatever. And the guy walks in, turns Albie around, looks at him face to face, like puts his arms like this, caresses on his shoulders. And then he spins him around and bends him over the sink. And I'm like, oh. I said, oh, HBO, you about to show this? What's going on? So you hear his zipper unzipping, right? But behind his back, he has a knife. And he pulls out the knife and he tells him, you're hot, Albie, which is a signal to Albie that this is something that's a setup because how does he know my name? So they're fighting. He ends up getting the knife knocked out of his hand, but the other guy, who has the upper hand, dumps his head in the sink that's full of water. And he attempts to drown him, and he's almost successful. What saves him is other guys come in to use the bathroom while he's doing it, and he leaves, which proves that there is yet another person who knows about Albie's secret. We see him later call Nikki, asking her if she and Bill are working with Roman because he feels like there's something going on with Bill because Bill came to the compound and he had to set things up because he was almost killed. And Nikki's like, look, I don't know what you're talking about. Bill didn't do that. Bill, wasn't there for that. And he's like, Nikki, I feel like you told Bill some certain things. And Nikki's like, what? What did I tell him? Which makes me feel like Nikki doesn't know what's going on. She's like, what did I tell him? He's like, about rumors, about me, rumors about behavior, about proclivities. Nikki's like, huh? What? It wasn't Nikki, y'all. In my opinion, it was Adeline or Adeline. Because when Nikki goes over to this truck that Adeline currently has all this stuff in and she's working from, as she's recording her book in case things go south, Nikki hands over files of two of the girls that are set to testify against her father. And Adeline's looking at her like, just two? And she's like, Mom, I stood there hiding for 40 minutes and I was scared. And she's like, look, this is what you got to do. She uses those two files to scare girls from testifying, because later on, while Nikki's at work, we see two girls dressed up like, you know, girls who come from this belief system, with their braids and their, you know, covering. And they're crying. And Nikki hurries up and turns her head. Nikki, who is posing as Margene, got the information to give to her mom. And the guy is fussing about how he's losing witnesses left and right. At this point, he only has two more. So she brings up to her mom while she's talking to her that Albie thinks Bill tried to kill him. And the way that her mom looks up and says, Bill? Like, oh, okay, he has no idea. And she's like, yeah. She's like, oh, okay, good Bill. She's like, well, it's Albie's own fault. I heard it was in a public bathroom. It's disgusting. A public John. And I know you know what I'm talking about. Tap, tap, tap. It's who he chooses to be. How can you help someone if they don't fix themselves? I don't know what tap, tap, tap means. I'm confused. If y'all know what tap, tap, tap means, let me know. But it further lets me know that Nikki doesn't know about her brother. Meanwhile, a lot of the older women do, because we know that Lois also knows. After this, we see Albie and his mom's cross paths as they're both in different vehicles. And there's this glare that happens, as well as what looks like a concern in Albie as he realizes that his mother can very much so be the person who set that whole thing up. So Don is all excited. Excuse me. Because Barb is coming around at the thought of the fourth. Bill is telling Don he's not sure about Anna. It's taken a lot to get, you know, his ladies to fall in line. And Anna is opinionated and she's aggressive. And Don's like, you know, Bill, I feel like you can do this. I feel like, you know, you can continue to be the priesthood holder and get these ladies to fall in line. She doesn't know, you know, what she wants. Just go over there and show her, Bill. And I said, Don, I don't think that Bill knew what you meant, because Bill is all talk. We go over and we see him supposedly letting, you know, Anna know about their beliefs. And she tells him that she doesn't think she can do it. She's like, I care for you, but I don't think I could do it. I think we should stop seeing each other. And she gets up and walks away. And like a lot of these guys with egos, he can't take being told no. He can tell you no, but he struggles with you telling him no. So he says, you know, I can't handle you ending it this way. I'm so in love with you. I said, if this man is in love with her, then I'm in love with licorice. And I hate licorice. It's a bluff. It's a lie. But they end up having sex. He gives into passion, just to later on to say that he doesn't feel like it's going to work. He leaves her without saying goodbye. It's real, once again, a great example of how Bill can't handle conflict and how childish he is. You're supposed to be this priesthood holder, but you can't even be honest with a woman and say, I wasn't supposed to have sex with you. I don't think that this is going to work. I've had sex with you now and I'm good, because I got what I really was struggling with, which was the desire that I felt for you. So he comes home to Margine's, and Barb is over there because Barb previously was rocking the baby and talking to the baby. So she's in Margine's room, and he says, I'm not ever going to see her again. It's over. Both ladies look distraught. Margie later goes over there with the Book of Mormon saying that I think this is what we do, which goes back to her not even realizing what she's signed up for. Talking about that since, that night that he came and said that Bill has been praying and fasting. So she's thinking it's because he cares for her. But it's really because technically he jacked up. He cheated on his family. He cheated on his wives. He did something that he wasn't supposed to do. And I wonder if he's going to tell them. So Margie does this whole talk about how you're meant to be in this family and how you deserve this and you shouldn't throw it all away. End of that. Sarah and Heather both get into the U. Heather is excited. So Sarah originally was, but she's torn now, not because of Scott, but because she says she doesn't want to stay in Utah anymore. She feels like she'll die if she stays there. She's applied to out-of-state schools. It all goes back to how much she's been hurt by this entire thing. It's barbecue time. Bill has decided that everybody's going to go to the barbecue. Nikki stays back. As Nikki did her Ruth repair, they all go. There's a whole bunch of misunderstandings that we see happening between the neighbors and the Henriksons that lead to Bill almost telling everybody what's going on. So Nikki's on the roof. The kids knock down her ladder, being mean again. It's just no point for it. I don't understand what kind of parents you have that make you feel like it's okay for you to pick on people. Those children should be reprimanded, but I'm sure it didn't happen. No one is coming to their stand, to their hot dog stand. And neighbors are saying things like, our daughters couldn't be more different. And then we see things get heated between Bill and a neighbor. And Bill looks like he's about to explode and then tell everything, even in simplest conversations. Patty, the neighbor, comes to Margine and Barb and say the problem isn't with your family, it's with Tansy. She has a club and she shows the boys dirty magazines and she charges them 50 cents a minute to take a look. Meaning she's showing them, we see Playpen, I guess it's supposed to be like a version of Playboy. And Barb's like, that's it? Because in their eyes at this point, the biggest problem that they're facing is polygamy. It's always about, that. Their whole life. That's what it seems to boil down to, is polygamy. But this is an issue, like, are we going to talk to, our daughter about, that situation? About her body and showing, what some would consider a smut magazine to the boys and charging them for it. I'm not mad at her business, savvy here that they want to look at it that much, but I'm just saying, like, are we going to talk about that? So we then see Bill and another neighbor looking like they're about to fight. And Nikki stands up on the roof because she's, there already. And she saves her family yet again. Nikki has got to be tired of carrying these people on her back. She says, you were right. You were all right. I am the daughter of Roman Grant. I know you hate him. I know you want to judge me, but you don't know me. All I've ever wanted is to be off the compounds, to live a normal life. And when the Henriksons and Margie reached out to me and tried to help me break away and become truly free, it was the first kindness I've ever truly known. I said, oh, Nikki, you better pour it on thick, girl. I never thought I'd bring anything bad to them. And I would never do anything to hurt them. I would move off the street before I would do that. And it works because the other neighbors are like, oh my goodness, they really did that. That's so kind of them to do that for her. And like they bought it. And just like that, they're like, oh, good job, girl. You did it. We're restored. Everybody, is going to stop looking at us. And the neighbors are so impressed. And Nikki thinks, okay, finally, this horrible day could be over. As Anna shows up saying, okay, everyone, I'm here on your terms. And Bill looks shocked. Nikki looks annoyed. Margine is like, and Barbara's like, y'all, let me know what you thought of this. As usual, I'm here longer than I expected, but some of you all do not have HBO, so I want to make sure that you understand what is going on. Anyways, let me know your thoughts down below. Like the video if you haven't done so already. And if you're new and you haven't subscribed, or if you've been here and you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting on? We're on the road to 2,000. Oh, I'm already at 2,000. We're on the road to 5,000. Let me not pull myself back. And I hope to get there sooner than later. Thank you guys so much. Have a great Tuesday. Until next time.